Streaming? Yes, we are. Very good. Good evening. I'd like to call the March 7, 2020 meeting of the University Heights City Council to order. Mrs. Thomas, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Sachs? Here. Mrs. Blanco?
Here.
Mr. Rock?
Here.
Mrs. Wise?
Here.
Mr. Gould?
Here.
Mr. Cooney?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here. Very good, all are present. Before I proceed, the Chair would like to recognize Mr. Gould for an announcement.
Thank you, Mayor. It seems from the conversations with Council and with you that we are at a place when it comes to our COVID procedures where we are implementing the CDC guidelines with the green, yellow, orange standard, which is a county-specific evaluation that the CDC is doing. So right now Cuyahoga County is in yellow. It's based on the community spread in a given region or county, as well as the hospitalizations and strain on the public health system. Right now, based on CDC guidelines, if individuals are immunocompromised, they should consider speaking to their healthcare providers about whether or not they should wear masks. But until we reach an orange level, there is not a suggestion from the CDC that all individuals wear masks. So unless there's any objection from another member of council, I would just suggest that we implement that for our meetings, and members of the community can choose to mask or not as they choose.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gould.
Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Will you please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with the reading and disposal of the journal. Could we have a motion to table the last set of minutes?
So moved, Mayor.
Second. Okay, motion by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Rock. Mrs. Thomas, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Sachs? Aye. Mrs. Blanco?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Gould?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney? Mr. King?
Aye. Okay, very good. Minutes are tabled. Is item 4, additions and removals from the agenda and referrals to committee. Are there any additions or removals from the agenda or referrals this evening?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mayor.
Hey, I'll take it.
Yes, again.
Thank you.
Mayor, from the Safety Committee, I would move to add on an approval of Lexapro invoices from police and fire departments in the amount of $25,483.96.
Okay, shall we add that as new item F?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Gould to add back to the agenda as item F discussion, or not discussion rather, but motion to approve Lexapro invoices from police and fire departments in the amount of $25,483.96. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Mrs. Sachs. Any discussion? Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll.
Mrs. Sachs?
Aye.
Mrs. Blanco?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Gould?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye. Very good, motion carries. That'll be new item F with the executive session portion, motion being item G. Are there any other additions or removals from the agenda or referrals to committee? Seeing none, we'll go to comments from the audience. Is there anybody here to address the city this evening? If so, would you please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record? You may take up to 5 minutes to speak. Seeing none, we will then go on to reports and communications from the mayor and the taking of action thereon. I will start with an announcement of some good news. Actually, I think most of this is good news this evening. The city's income tax collections for the first 2 months of the year are up 8.9% over last year. Mr. Kennedy will dive deeper into those numbers in his report later this evening. Last Monday, February 28, 2022, Sauce the City had its grand opening of its new store here in University Heights at the Cedar Green Plaza. We had the ribbon cutting at noon. I issued a proclamation to Chef Vic and his partners declaring it Sauce the City Day in the city of University Heights. Thank you to Economic Development Director Susan Drucker for helping coordinate the event. Thank you to Councilperson Brian King for attending the ribbon cutting. Thank you to the several representatives of the Heights Hillcrest Regional Chamber of Commerce who were there, including Board President Kevin Smalley and Lyndhurst Mayor Patrick Ward, among others. I did get my first taste of Sauce the City's award-winning sandwich and street corn, and I definitely will be back for more. On Thursday, February 24th, the city heard the presentation of the draft facilities study. The study went over the needs of the several departments based upon their evaluation as our consultant's evaluation of the departments and applying industry standards for our city's operations. The projected price tag is in the neighborhood of $50 million. To be clear, that is not merely for a new city hall, but for a total of all facilities for all departments, including police, fire, service, and administration, which includes administrative departments like finance and building and housing, as well as the addition of community rooms and spaces like a city auditorium and meeting rooms, which do not currently exist in our city in the absence of any community center. We have built no new facilities since the 1950s, and the subject of facilities construction has been a periodic topic since at least the mid-1980s. Looking around Greater Cleveland, the city of Brooklyn announced in 2020 a $25 million project to replace only their city hall and police department, which is now being built next to their rec center. They are doing that without raising taxes. The city of Warrensville Heights moved into a new municipal center in 2020 for administration, police, and the school district, and they also did that without raising taxes. The city administration remains committed to living within our means. Of that meeting, we will be addressing financing options in due time, and I want to assure the public that there is no plan to raise taxes to make these crucial improvements. Other communities have been creative in seeking and exercising financing opportunities to improve their facilities, and this administration is doing the same. I would be remiss if I did not comment on a matter on everyone's mind around the world. Since the last meeting, in the wee hours, local time of February 24, 2022, Russia instituted a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. This is the largest conventional military attack on a sovereign state in Europe since World War II. My phone began lighting up in the early morning, looking for ways to help. There are many ways to do that, from the International Red Cross to UNICEF, among many others. In an act of solidarity, one resident asked that morning if we would fly the flag of Ukraine at City Hall. To me, the bigger question wasn't whether we would, but whether we could locate a flag. My thanks to resident Jim Altman, who located a flag and brought it to City Hall that same day. And before the day was out, we put up the flag of Ukraine on the southwest corner of Lawrenceville and Silsbee, where it flies now, and today, and for the foreseeable future. Today, there are 1.7 million refugees from Ukraine. This in addition to some 70 million refugees and displaced persons from conflicts around the world. We cannot strongly enough condemn the actions of Russia against Ukraine. I believed then, as I do now, that this invasion is the death rattle of a diminished and failed autocrat, grasping for relevance, backed into a corner where invasion became his seeming only option. He has united the world against him. May we as a country stand up for democracy and freedom and continue to act to bring this conflict to a proper end. May Ukraine be free and know peace, with their country and borders restored. And may the Russian people soon be free of this corrupt authoritarian. Thank you. This concludes my report. Next item is reports and communications from the City Council and taking of action thereon. Mrs. White?
Thank you, Mayor. As the Mayor mentioned, the first of many Council of the Whole facility meetings was held last week. We have many meetings over the next 8 weeks in regards to the facilities as well. First discussing with different department heads, and then with internal architects from ARB and from our Planning Commission. We have a tech advisory committee coming up this week, which Councilman King will discuss in his report. We have a council retreat coming up on Thursday, which is meant for the administration and the city council to discuss goals and aspirations for the short term and the long term over the next 2 years. And there is also a service committee that is coming up next week as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Weiss. Are there any other reports and communications from City Council at this time? Okay. Seeing none, we will now turn to the regular agenda. And the first item on the agenda is item A, which is a motion to confirm the nominations of Hallie Turnbrez and Brad Glazier to the University Heights Civil Service Commission. I understand, it looks like Ms. Turnbrez is here, and I think Mr. Glazier is here too. Yep, I think I see. So, Council, I think you have letters and from Mr. Glazier and Ms. Turnbrez, and we also have Ms. Turnbrez's resume. Mr. Glazier's accomplishments are basically highlighted in his letter. Mr. Glazier is well known to our council, having also served on the, and has been serving and continues to serve on the Finance Advisory Committee. He was just reappointed to that. He has also served on committees in Beechwood. Perhaps not everyone is aware Mr. Glazier does, though he's not practicing law, does have a legal education background. And you know, these commission seats only come up from time to time, and we do have 2 vacancies due to 2 resignations by longtime serving members of the commission who we thank Keith and Therese for their service. But at the same time, they were at a point where they were ready to move on, and we are delighted to have 2 very qualified individuals. Ms. Turnbrez is a newer resident to the community, having only been here the last couple of years, is a graduate of Case Law School, also a graduate of the University of Wisconsin at Oshkosh, and is a criminal defense lawyer. Is also very interested in the workings of the Civil Service Commission. Delighted to extend an opportunity, and after having spoken with both of them, to both of these well-qualified individuals with an interest to serve the community in a bigger and very important way. So I'm delighted to offer my nomination, both individuals, to the Civil Service Commission for City Council's approval. I did not necessarily ask either of our candidates nominees to prepare remarks, but they are here this evening, particularly if they have anything that they have question about. Welcome to the City of University Heights City Council meeting, and thank you for your willingness to serve. Are there any questions, comments? If not, is there a motion?
And I would just ask that we
Separate
the 2 candidates. Thank
2
you.
motions. So, is there a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to nominate both. Oh, we're doing it
Well, we're going to do them separately.
Correct. I will make a motion to nominate Brad Glazier to University Heights Civil Service Commission. Is that for a term of any length? Is there
So, 6-year term?
6 years?
Mhm.
It wasn't stated there, so I wasn't sure.
No, it's a 6-year term.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Seconded. Okay. Motion by Mrs. Blank. I'll take the second from Mrs. Weiss. Mr. Glazier, do you accept?
I do accept, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll.
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mrs. Blankville?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Mr. Gould?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Glazier, and thank you for agreeing to serve.
Mayor?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to confirm the nomination of Hallie Turnbrez to the University Heights Civil Service Commission for a period of 6 years.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Gould. We have a motion by Mr. Gould to confirm Ms. Turnbrez to a term of 6 years. Is there a second? I'll second. Second by Mr. King. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Imbrez, do you accept?
Sure, yes. I think you had questions. No, I do accept, thank you.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Imbrez. If there's no discussion, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mrs. Wendell?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gould?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Imbrez, and congratulations. You know, I don't believe I asked Ms. Thomas to prepare oaths for this meeting, so I'm happy to swear you in at the next Civil Service Commission meeting. Technically, there was a meeting scheduled for tomorrow. I did not warn you about that. We have canceled that meeting. There is another regular meeting coming up in April. However, there may be a reason to call a meeting sooner. You'll be hearing from Mrs. Thomas shortly with regard to your availability for a makeup march. So thank you very much. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but your portion here is done, so you're also free to leave. Not trying to get rid of you, of course. Thank you both. Next item is item B, presentation by Ben Greenberg and Spiro. I'm sorry, I don't have my reading glasses on. Spiro Sincermis regarding Ohio Revised Code Section 3767.41 and receiverships created thereunder for elimination of residential blight and public nuisance structures. You're welcome to come up to the podium to make your presentation. Thank you for being here. And we give you the floor.
Good evening, Council. One of the focuses of the department, the housing department, since the summer of 2021 has been to identify the problem properties within the city and have those properties cited if they hadn't been previously, in order to notify the current titled owner of the property and the conditions of potential blight. The department identified several properties which you guys received pictures of after we did the interior inspections. Which had been vacant for years. One of the properties was at 3708 Meadowbrook, which had been vacant for 17 years. Without being able to contact owners, the department would seek and obtain search warrants in order to enter the properties and verify what the conditions were and if the property was a hazard to health and safety. Many of the properties were in a condition where they could be rehabbed and brought back to productive use. In one circumstance, after finally getting in touch with an out-of-state investor who was the titled owner of 2539 Channing, the investor shortly after rehabbing the property after the city got in touch with them, and that's been what the department wants. It's been a goal, is that the property owners actually take care of their properties to productive use if they're vacant. In situations where the department sought search warrants for entry, oftentimes the property had a zombie title where the owner may have been deceased in a nursing home with no one to take care of their property, or in a situation where they could not be found. Knowing that the city is averse to demolitions and would rather work to keep its housing stock intact as best as it can, when problems arise with properties which have zombie titles, another avenue or potential tool that the city could use is through receivership. This is a tool which would be best used in circumstances or situations where a property may have been vacant for several years with a title in limbo, while adding a blighting effect to the surrounding community. Properties that you're aware of right now, such as at 3910 Faversham, 3485 Tullamore, and at 3708 Meadowbrook, to name a few. I met Ben Greenberg in July of last year, and met him through him inquiring about receiverships in the city while I was at the time researching on receiverships that could be done within the city. I met with him several times over the last half year and had discussions with him and Attorney Spiro about receiverships, and found that they both have, along with Matt Yorkovich, have a wealth of knowledge and experience in bringing properties back from a state of limbo through the use of receiverships. And in these discussions, I shared with him, or them, the information I was able to gather about some of the properties the department found were long vacant and had zombie titles, and asked how the city could help in bringing those properties into compliance. In your council packet, you should have photos of befores and afters of the property at 1481 East 106th Street. There's also afters of the property at 1552 East 107th and 852 Beverly, which is in Heights. I'll let Mr. Greenberg, Attorney Sincermis, and Attorney Matt Yorkovich present on receiverships and how they've been able to take these properties that were in worse condition than some of the ones that I brought before council and bring those particular properties back to life.
Thank you, Jeff. So I actually met Jeff because I called and asked about Channing Road and said, what in the world is going on? I walked around it. And then we met shortly thereafter in person. So my name is Ben Greenberg. My day job is Director of Lending for a national intermediary that works on housing policy. I work for Housing Partnership Network, and before that I worked at NeighborWorks America, managing one of their CDFIs. But I'm also a landlord, and in Cleveland Heights I have one property in University Heights and properties in Cleveland. And I remember complaining to a friend of mine about a zombie house next to a house I owned on Lee Road. And they said, you need to do receivership. And I said, well, what is that and how will that help? Shortly thereafter, I met Matt Yorkovich, and we've been pretty successful. So my background, we're developers, but we really think there's an opportunity for a win. Let me introduce my business partner, Spiros Sincermis.
I always like when I get to do one of these presentations because I get to see how my name is pronounced. It's always a kind of a fun thing, but my name is Spiros Sincermis, and I appreciate how Jeff, kind of introduced me. I am an attorney, but I'm going to kind of clarify. I am actually an immigration attorney. I don't handle property stuff. I'm the parents of immigrants, and I spend most of my days helping people, come to the United States, and I've done a lot of work getting people here, and as I watched my clients start to integrate into the societies, I started seeing there were different issues that I could help contribute in the society that I live in and the community that I live in. And I met Ben about 3 or 4 years ago, and we started talking about these houses that are stuck. And receivership is a tool that we discovered which really gives us the ability to go after houses that are not owner-occupied. They're not houses that a little old lady or somebody just getting by is living in. These are houses that are being owned by, or that are owned by banks. These are houses that are being owned by LLCs that are just using the city, this property ownership as a tax write-off. These are the properties that are, for we said before, 17 years, are starting to just deteriorate. This is a tool. This is not a taking. This helps us get them back up to productive use. And the one good thing that I have seen out of each one of these houses is that it has an extremely high success rate, in the sense that if an action is brought, either we can be appointed receiver and fix that house, or the owner gets off wherever they are, and they can fix it themselves, right? Because they don't want to lose that property. So it gives a very good opportunity for the state to bring this into productive use. But on that point, Matt Yorkovich has been a great mentor to me, and I'm going to let him kind of take a step here and explain the process a little further. It's nice to meet you, and thank you for your time.
You too. Thank you. Mr. Yorkovich?
All right. And one of the things I could do is, if you guys have questions, feel free to answer any questions that you guys have. So I've been bringing public nuisance actions. I don't call them receivership actions. I call them public nuisance actions. I've been bringing them since about 2007 on behalf of Cleveland Marshall College of Law, and representing the City of Cleveland's neighborhood development corporations in those actions. We also brought the action against Deutsche Bank and Wells Fargo in 2008 that resulted in a great number of properties being transferred to the county land bank. Since that time, I don't know, the number's probably up over 100 properties that we've had a positive effect on with this statute. And so it's Ohio Revised Code 3767.41. Nuisance action. The action is easily understood if you understand that the first action is to ask the court to declare the property a public nuisance and to order the owner of the property to abate that nuisance. If the owner doesn't respond, if the owner is deceased, if the owner can't be located, the statute allows the court then to appoint a receiver to take custody and control of the property and effectuate the nuisance abatement, whether that's rehabilitation or whether that's demolition. Before the court appoints a receiver, the receiver puts before the court a plan, a construction financial plan, a full scope of work, and it acts as an agent of the court to effectuate that public nuisance abatement plan. The receiver can't do anything that's not pre-approved by the court, can't spend $1 that's not pre-approved by the court, and then once the nuisance is abated, the receiver presents the financial accountings and the demonstration of the funds expended, and then the court approves those costs and expenses as a super priority receiver's lien. That super priority receiver's lien is then foreclosed on, and it has a title clearing mechanism with that, so that mortgages, judgment liens, people that are in bankruptcy but didn't lose the property to bankruptcy, all of those things are wiped out as a part of this. As a matter of fact, the only thing that's not wiped out are really federal liens, but we've had tremendous success demonstrating to the U.S. Attorney's Office that these properties, but for the actions of the receiver and the plaintiffs in bringing the action, would have been of no value, and the government's always willing to kind of waive any federal tax liens or things like that. Again, the action can be brought by one of three parties: a municipal government, a city or municipality. It can be brought by a neighbor within 500 feet of the property, and it can be brought by a nonprofit neighborhood community development corporation whose mission is to improve the condition of housing within the neighborhood. Well, most of my actions are brought by nonprofit neighborhood development corporations. I've recently worked on, with Ben Greenberg and some of his entities for properties that are within 500 feet of properties that he owns. So he's actually been the plaintiff bringing these actions and then appointed by the court as a receiver to abate the nuisance conditions. And actually, even more recently, the city of South Euclid has brought one of these actions, and I represent the county land bank who serves as a receiver on that case. And also the city of Rocky River has brought one of these actions, and I also represent the county land bank who serves as a receiver on that action. I'm a big fan of the ability for both municipal governments, neighbors, and nonprofit development corporations to bring this action. I always express that it is for the worst of the worst. It's for the property that you can't otherwise just wait for it to go through tax foreclosure. You can't wait for it to transfer into the hands of a beneficial owner. These are properties that, but for this action, are going to sit years, as a burden to the community, as a burden to the neighbors, and non-productive properties. We've had a tremendous amount of success. Even if a receiver isn't appointed, as Ben and Spiro said, a lot of times it motivates the property owner. These actions cannot be brought against owner occupants, okay? So there's no concern there. They have to be brought against properties that have residential character. So I have brought them against commercial properties that have apartments upstairs, but it's really for a residential house, typically single family or multifamily, but a property that's vacant, has extensive code violations, and but for this action, criminal code enforcement is not effective, because to fine an out-of-state investment LLC that never shows up to court is unproductive. It doesn't work. But this action will allow you to control the property, have a receiver appointed, and then control the disposition, the rehab of the property, and then eventually the sale of the property to a beneficial owner. So with that, if you guys have any questions about this, I teach as an adjunct at the law school. I do this presentation quite a bit. My goal in this is that municipalities feel more comfortable in bringing these actions. One of the biggest issues is the cost. A lot of times a municipality doesn't want to spend the money to then abate the nuisance, especially if that's a rehab. And what some communities are finding is that they partner with third parties that are willing to serve as the receiver, third parties that can qualify in front of the court to be appointed receiver, that third party can spend the money for the abatement, and the city can benefit from the fact that there's people with knowledge of bringing the actions, and kind of a public-private partnership, if you will, for the abatement of these very distressed properties. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you, Mr. Yurkovich. Did you want to add something, Mr. Greenberg?
I did. I just wanted to, thanks, Matt. That's great. Of course, Matt makes it happen, but I work with the city, or again, have found my own candidates based on properties I've owned, and we've successfully rehabbed 2. We've forced 3 really bad owners to sell their properties, and 1 to actually fix up their property. I mean, that was a surprise. I didn't expect this with you. I thought they were for sure going to fight us on it. And